Excellent.
You're perfectly done.
Well, hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Heart Mind Happy Hour. Really excited to be here today for a discussion on that I think is really topical right now because of the stressed world that we're in. And so this topic, which I titled after an article that I wrote on Medium called "Escaping the Not Enough Trap," I just think is extremely topical when it feels like there's so much in the world that needs fixing, that feels broken, and it feels like there's this imperative to help. And how do we do that and yet still not fall into the trap of not feeling like we're doing enough? And that conundrum. I also want to say I'm your host, Holly Copeland, and I'm a coach, a human potential coach, and scientist as well. And I run these shows because these topics of really that are for me at the confluence of personal health and wellness, but also meditation and mindfulness. So I'm just, I don't know. I guess right now I just do what strikes my heart. And I'm very excited today to have three people who all strike my heart very deeply, I've worked with in one way or another. The first one is Shweta Shyamani, who is a coach, and she works primarily with professionals. She has a company called Personal Point of Power and worked in the corporate world for a long time and now works with business people primarily in the health and wellness realm. And welcome, Shweta.
Thank you. So happy to be with all of you.
I'm really happy for you to be here too. And Shweta and I were introduced by a mutual friend, and I did some work. She does rapid transformational therapy work, and did that with her and was just wowed with the work that you do. Really inspired by it. Yeah, so really happy to have you here. And then Monica Augustine, who is a intuitive life coach and Reiki practitioner and teacher. I just took Reiki. She just worked with me on my Reiki certification too. Really excited to have you here. She has a business, Energia Healing Arts, and have worked also with Monica in that capacity. And just such a delight to have you here, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited about today.
Yeah. Can't wait to hear from you. And lastly, but certainly not least, Stephen-Altair, who is, welcome, Stephen, a friend.
Thank you, Holly.
Coach, healer, teacher, mystic, everything. I don't know.
Thank you. I'm humbled, truly, and love and blessings to you and to everybody that's listening. So I'm really, really grateful for this opportunity and to share it with such wonderful souls. So I think the topic, and especially what comes out for all of us in terms of awareness and insight and wisdom, is just so very here and now. So couldn't have picked a better time. So thank you, truly.
Thank you, truly. All right. Well, I always like to begin the discussion with just coming into presence together. So if everybody would just sort of drop in and take a few deep breaths. Coming into the space and just asking, I guess, feeling really grateful to be here, and asking for guidance and wisdom that the conversation and the topic really provides healing and insight and wisdom for all those who listen, and that we are just guided to be here in the most loving, compassionate, and kind way that we can possibly be. All right, well, thank you. So I actually want to begin by just telling a little bit of the story behind this article that I wrote, because I think it will set up nicely why this topic resonates so much for me. And just kind of really quickly, when I was a few years ago when I was feeling really spun out of my job, and I worked for a really large conservation organization, and I'd done that for 20 years. And I think this resonates in the sense of today with all the challenges that we have with COVID and racial injustices, and this feeling of just want to do more. What else can I do? And that's how I was feeling for so long with my own work in conservation, just from an environmental perspective, watching the world, what felt like watching the world fall apart. And so it felt like my life had become this series of what I called sort of life in Groundhog Day, of just waking up to do everything I can, and then sort of going to sleep exhausted, and then waking up and doing it again. And, yes, taking time on the weekends to, time out for myself to be happy, or on vacation. But I just sort of came to that moment of, is this really it? And is this the best way I can contribute? And realizing that actually my own happiness was central. Like, I could do more if I could come into my own enoughness and be okay with everything, no matter what. And I know that's, really central to, like, sort of the end of suffering from the Buddhist perspective, of dropping into being okay with everything just as it is. But that's how I came to that realization in my own life, I guess. And finally, it was like, this is a trap. Viewing the world there will never be, I can't fix this. There will never be enough. There isn't an end to this. If I view it that way, that will be the end. That will be how I live my life. And then the alternative, which is, well, so how do I escape that trap? And in my own mind, it was, well, I just, if I can't be happy in every, basically fundamentally happy as things are, then, and I've got a full belly, and I have, I don't struggle to put a roof over my house. I mean, basic things are taken care of. If I can't, nobody can. And that just seems ridiculous. Is that our fate? So anyway, so I feel like the enoughness and coming home to being okay with everything that is, no matter the external circumstances, what was the setup for me, and how I kind of came to reframe that and understand that fundamentally I am enough, and fundamentally everything will be okay in this bigger perspective. And yet I know that, already with the article that I wrote, I've had a number of people sort of push back on that and say, how could you possibly say that everything will be okay given the external circumstances? And so I think it's a really important topic. And maybe that's where I'll set it up for now, and then we'll see where the discussion unfolds. So Monica, I would love for you first to just talk about how this resonates with you.
Well, I think this topic is such an important topic, and I think there's so many different perspectives and views on this being enough. And my personal experience that I can speak to and share a little bit about is, as a young girl and growing up, just early experiences where I don't know, maybe I came in that way, and I do believe in my own spiritual beliefs. I came in to learn certain things, and I do believe that. And then more on a human perspective, I definitely experienced, there was a lot of abuse and things like that in my upbringing. There was a lot of physical, mental, sexual abuse growing up, and it was started at a really young age. So I already kind of started my journey feeling like I can never do enough. Like I can't be enough. And then you kind of learn what I learned just by osmosis was that over sense of responsibility for others, their happiness and their happiness, and then being a young girl and then being like, I want them to be happy, of course. But then as I grew up and became, 8, 9, 10, and then into teens, and, that part of my life, I constantly had this anxiety that I was never going to be able to be enough or make everyone happy. And it was a huge burden. It was a huge burden, just to be completely honest. That was then, but I just wanted to give people listening and you guys a understanding of my experience with it. But, I remember I had, an ulcer at 13. And it was because I was constantly ruminating of, well, how am I going to be enough today? How am I going to help enough today? Just being enough, period. And it takes me back quite a ways. So it's hard to remember thankfully, it's hard to remember all the details about it. I'm so glad to say that now, that it's hard to remember. But it was excruciating, quite honestly, in my experience. And so I had to, learn. I had to learn, then, because home was a bit challenging, there was some positive things, and I'm not putting it all down, but there was that. It wasn't ever black or white. There was all kinds of things mixed in there. And then I put a lot of my effort into outside approval. And then that, of course, is a huge trap. It's huge, but it was, at that time in my life, it actually kind of saved me. So, okay, I'm friendly, I'm nice, I'm good at athletics, so like it's kind of saved me on a certain level, But then as I got older into 20s and things like that, I saw how that not enoughness played out. And back at that time, it still was there was some self-harm involved. So it was even like, at that time, it was even a little more extreme than just not enoughness. So I realized I have got to learn how to do this. I have got to get better. I want to live a good life. I want to contribute to society in a positive way. And I don't want to give up on this mental, struggle. And so then I really started, practicing. I believe in God. I have faith. And I learned to meditate. And so I met Kevin, my husband, but I started meditating, and I started to learn how to observe. It was a long haul, but still I did learn. And I started understanding, even just from those moments of, there's more than my thoughts. There's more than my beliefs. There's more than what other people think of me. There's more than this identifying with myself, like this small self. And then I started feeling excitement. Okay, I know I'm just starting this journey when I was in my early 20s, but at least I have a journey. At least I'm headed somewhere that can lead to liberation and freedom. And so that's kind of a bit of my path. And honestly, it was a pretty long, hard road, but I'm so thankful I did it, because I learned so much compassion for others, of what they might be going through. And I think that's a huge gift. And I honestly don't know that I would have changed anything. It sounds weird to say that now. And maybe to some others struggling, I would not say that. If they were kind of at the beginning of something like I went through, definitely would not be saying that. But I learned a lot of compassion for the struggles of others. And I'm so grateful for that. And then the clients I work with, and just people, I've learned maybe they're suffering today. Maybe they're struggling today. And I don't know if I would have learned that without going through those experiences. Maybe I would have, but I'm not sure about that, if I would have. But not being enough was like, it felt like a big cross to bear, because at some points in the past, like early life, it was so hard that I just didn't even think I could be here. Like, I'm not going to measure up. I'm talking thankfully a while ago, but I'm not going to be smart enough. I'm never going to be pretty enough. I'm not going to be kind enough. I'm not going to be, it was just hard. And then I just said, no, I really want to do this. I prayed a lot. I meditated. Fitness was a way that I, exercise was a way that I helped myself, nature, people. I love people. I love connecting, but not being enough. It was something where I really had to learn trying to go back, validating myself and validating, Monica, that's enough now. Like, it's almost like mental boundaries, like mental helpful boundaries I had to learn to teach myself, because I didn't learn them growing up, and I had to learn when to say it's enough. Like, Monica, okay, you were kind enough today. That was enough today. You helped somebody else today. You put in effort at work today. It's got to be enough. Because there were times, even at work, I'd always be like worried, like, did I do enough? And it just became kind of like, okay, I'm either going to drive myself crazy, or I'm going to have to learn how to do this different. But that's a little bit of my journey. And now, just like really fast forwarding here, now this is like, I'm 51, and I've learned to meditate, and I've learned a lot of faith in the way that I believe. And I've learned how to say, that's enough for today, like, because I do care a lot about people, and I care about the world, and like all of us do. And, but then I have to say, just, it's okay to be happy, because that's only going to help people. If I'm sad and stressed, I feel like that's what I'm going to be giving to other people. And the world definitely doesn't need more of that. But like you said, Holly, I had a roof over my head. I was thankful for that. We had funds and a lot of actually luxury things, like horseback riding lessons and things like that. But then there was all this other stuff mixed in. So it was kind of confusing, but now I would say the ways it shows up for me, Holly, is like way more mild, and I can catch it, and I can stop it, and I can say, that's enough now. Like, did I do enough? Did I help enough? Did I give enough? But those are mild, and I can really just say, yeah, it's time to set that healthy boundary and be present. Being present was huge. And I know learning how to just trust that everything's okay and everything's in divine order, and there's a divine intelligence that I so much believe in, and learn to trust that there's a plan. It started to help me feel like, okay, well, I got to learn to understand and have faith in enoughness. So that's a little bit of where I come from. And I'm so grateful to be here with you guys. I love this topic because it was in my past, Holly, such a burden and such a hard thing to overcome. But I feel like, I feel enough for the most part now, but I definitely get tied and caught up in, sometimes I have to definitely break sticks and like say I let go of the day, or I'll think about it. Usually it's like, did I do enough? So, and the things that are going on today with racial discrimination and what's been going on forever. So sorry, I mean to say it like that, but all the things happen in our world right now, like I joined NAACP to learn more. And then I have to say, like, okay, I'm learning, I'm growing, and in my actions, but then I have to say that's enough for today. Or then I think I have to learn every second, that kind of thing too. But I think trust, and I'm at a place of more trust now, and that I have faith in God and divine unfolding. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I really appreciate you sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you said so many important things there that resonated with me. And, it feels like this radical act of self-compassion to just say it's enough. And I think the essence of the trap to me is to look for validation outside as your measure by which you're enough, and to keep looking outside as though somehow that's, I'm going to be enough when it will be okay. I will be happy when. And that's the trick. It's actually the gift, as you so beautifully said, is actually to come fully and joyfully, not that something will make us sad, but to be fully in the moment. And that is your gift. That is what we give to each other, is to come with love and compassion and kindness in every moment. And we can't do that if we constantly are never enough. We're in the trap again. We're in the illusion. So,
So true.
yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Shweta, how about you? Tell us a little of why this issue resonates with.
Well, my journey of not enoughness personally probably started when my family immigrated to this country. So we have, we're part of that kind of experience of, and I grew up in a predominantly white, middle-class suburban neighborhood of Chicago. And there were very few children of color, right? So I could probably count on one hand. I wouldn't need many fingers to count how many kids looked like me or looked different from everybody else. And so that was, and I was sort of, excuse me, my parents set me up to kind of expect having to work harder than everybody else. And that was the expectation, like you're going to have to be better at everything and you're going to have to do 10 times better in order to get the same sorts of, opportunities and so forth. And not only was I a person of color, but I was a girl, so that was another sort of thing to contend with as a woman back in the 70s when I was growing up. So there were those two things. So already I was sort of set up, and I think my parents' intention was certainly good. They had experienced racial discrimination. I had been bullied mildly, really, all things considered, very mildly at school. And so it was sort of, I was looking for it, right? And so the mind is always looking for evidence to prove and validate its beliefs. And so I was set up with the belief that I'm going to be treated differently. Somehow I'm not enough. I don't measure up. I certainly physically didn't look anything like the kids that I was friends with and so forth. And my family traditions were different. We spoke our, native language at home, and my parents wanted to maintain that. And we would eat different foods. My parents were vegetarians, which now it's quite common, but back in the 70s, not common. Right. So already I was just sort of set up in this not enough way, and not by any kind of malicious intent. It just was part of my journey. And I love what Monica said about, like, there's this spiritual aspect. We're here to learn certain things. So it's no accident that I was born in this family, in this body, and then moving to a country where I was like, I stuck out, because that was part of my journey and experience. And then overcoming that, like an eating disorder was involved for like 10, 12 years when I was a teenager into my 20s. There was a lot of just self-judgment that happened. And it's a journey, and it's an ongoing journey, and I think that, and I started out in corporate, but I now do this healing work, one, because I want people to know that they are enough. Right? I mean, in corporate, you're constantly feeling like you're not meeting the mark and you're not measuring up, and there's some other carrot that you have to chase after and so forth. And there's always just this feeling that you're not enough. And that's false. And it makes people miserable. And that's why the statistics of like illness and disease and stress in corporate, they're staggering. There's a lot of physical fallout from the belief of not being enough as well. So that's why I do what I do. And, I wish that I could say that I always feel like I'm enough. I think that, maybe we always, when we talk about not feeling enough, we talk about sort of the darker side of it. But what if, right, we could also hold that, well, the perception or a light sort of version of not enough might be something that inspires you to do better, that pushes you to strive more or bring out the best in you, or some parts of you that you didn't even know were available because you thought that you were falling a little bit short, right? So is there a way to hold both of like not enough, but it's not dark and gloom and doom? It's like, hey, there's more growth for me, because truly I believe that we're infinite. And I don't think that there's a finish line to personal growth. I mean, like you, Holly, I'm a personal growth junkie, right? And I have a feeling that all of us are here. We can't get enough of it. And we're always looking to evolve and become more and tap into like greater levels of consciousness. And I think that's fantastic. And if, so feeling that that not enough, maybe we can also look at maybe there's like a silver lining to that too, right? And then as far as like the people that I work with, I would say without exception, every single person has a story of not enoughness. Every single person. And I think a watershed moment in the work that I do with people is often they think that the world is reflecting back to them that they're not enough, but they are not aware that they're believing it, right? It lands simply because there's some part of them that believes it. So it's like the Eleanor Roosevelt quote of no one can make you inferior without your consent. So if people are saying, well, yeah, my, dad never thought that I was enough. It's like, well, there's a part of you that buys into it. Otherwise that would just kind of roll off your back. Right. So I think it's a really like eye-opening aha moment or revelation when people realize, wow, I've been believing it all the while as well. And then unpacking that. Right. And we all have our stories. Some may be more obvious than others, but even people who on paper look like they have a perfect life and a perfect job history and all that, they, I've worked with people who have Ivy League educations, and every company on their resume is, like an elite blue chip company, and they feel woefully, woefully inadequate and like failures. And that's not an exception. So I think this is one of the most pervasive limiting beliefs amongst humanity. And, the more we can have conversations about it and kind of sit in the discomfort of acknowledging the pain that we've experienced as a result of believing this, I think that we can not only heal ourselves, but then we can also help lift and heal others.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so well said. I so agree with you about it being pervasive and actually ramping up now. I mean, with all of us feeling so, empathetic for all the human injustice that is, coming to the fore right now. To me, I just had somebody tell me this story yesterday about, basically being confronted about you're not doing enough in your, business to, address this issue, and feeling very pressured and shamed. Actually, what was the word she used? I'm feeling shamed that, I'm doing everything I can. I thought I was, and that actually it's actually doing the opposite. It's making me feel really in a not good place. And I'm talking to like a very heartfelt, person who's, definitely not turning the other cheek by any stretch of imagination, but made to feel shame because people are frantic, in some circles to do something. And rightly so, there are tons of human injustices. However, that there's a conundrum, there's a problem here with how we're addressing it. And this fundamental enoughness is, I think, at the core. Stephen, how does this land for you, and what do you think based on everything you've heard, these beautiful conversations?
Well, they are beautiful, truly, Holly, and thank you again. And if you've just joined us, I really do extend the spirit of what we're talking about here, and really we could sum it up in terms of Monica's trust and faith, and Shweta's journey of growth, and Holly, what you were talking about in terms of self-compassion. So when we actually look at this issue of not enoughness, and we look at it, instead of looking at it as an individual, let's look at it practically, and let's look at it as one humanity. So we're really looking at this together, not as individuals, because as soon as we start looking at it as individuals and forgetting about the collective, we go straight back to all the things that have divided us in the first place. So once we start to consider ourselves as an enlightened collective and as a group of individuals who are actually bringing together the potential to liberate collectively, not just to liberate ourselves, but to liberate the planet, then we start to look at things that you've all been talking about, the interdependence, the interconnectedness that we all have and that we all share. So if we start from that base of one humanity, then we look at the whole problem in a completely different way. So think, for example, of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, when we look at what happened, we actually stopped doing, and we actually had to practice being at home. Maybe for the first time in our lives, we kind of went on a collective personal retreat worldwide. It's like the traditional concept in Buddhism of shamatha, or pausing and stopping. So we all had to pause, and we had to stop, and we had to consider and hopefully develop some insight and wisdom into what we were doing to each other and to this planet. And if you look at what happened in this personal retreat, for the first time, perhaps in years and years, India was able to see the Himalayas. Now, I think of that as an incredible symbol for humanity of potentially what's possible when we go from being an individual-based problem and into a collective problem. We actually realize that on a deeper level, that when we actually stop, take stock, then we enter into collective possibility, something that maybe hasn't happened in a long, long time. So once we start thinking about this, the we consciousness, the collective, and we look at what awakening, enlightening humanity might look like, then we first of all start to take a collective responsibility. We realize that actually all of this not having enoughness is not just an individual problem, it is a collective problem, and that it's our doing, because we are all in this together. It's like we're one team. It's our individual I that for such a long time has set up all these divisions, the divisions of nations, the divisions of religions, the divisions of lots and lots of separate factions. And so once we start thinking about the collective, we actually have to come all the way back, right back to the self. And what is the self doing with all its ideas and thoughts and concepts and emotions? Because right at the source of our collective problem of not enoughness is the self, is this idea that we've set up, this construct that we've set up that we call the self, with all its ideas, and that we don't have enough in the first place. And the moment that we start to deal with not enoughness from the aspect of I, then it's like division, trying to sort out division. So what does that mean? Well, most of our day, we operate in an ordinary awareness. We're not awake. We're actually buffeted by the same thoughts and ideas and concepts and emotions that we've set up for ourselves. We're buffeted by that division that exists, that's actually we've constructed. We've constructed the sense of self from day one. So right from the very beginning, we are actually living within the construct of our own self. And most of the time, we're barely aware of it. That construct and all its ideas and beliefs has set up all these divisions, all these ideas, all these belief systems, and they operate right across the planet. And they bring such a lot of conflict. So at some point, as you were saying, we start to ask ourselves, do we have to live in this conflict? Do we have to live? And that's basically what's happening at the moment around the pandemic and all the other conflict worldwide. That's really what is happening. Underneath that, the self, the individual cells of humanity are crying out in their suffering, and they want to be liberated. They want to be freed, and they want to reach a state of peace. So long as we firmly hold on to our idea of self as a whole separate construct, it's a little bit like looking up at the sky and seeing the stars at night and saying, there's the entire universe. And you only really are looking at 1% of the entire cosmos. Most of what is really important is invisible. It's hidden. The 99% of what humanity really needs to look at in order to become one, in order to drop all these divisions, is actually the invisible world. It's the invisible world within each one of us, inside us. People go, what? Inside me? The whole solution is inside me? Yeah, yes, it is. It's deep inside you. And so you can ask yourself, where am I right now? Even as you're listening to this, you can ask, where am I? Most of the time, we don't even know where our awareness is, much less where our ideas are. So there's no stability of view, there's no stability of awareness, and there's certainly no stability of awakening. We've all had glimpses of this where we feel that taste of freedom or peace. But most of the time, we're buffeted, tossed here, here, here. So where is your awareness? Is it there? Is it here? When you're listening, for example, consider where your awareness is in terms of the screen. Are you being pulled in by the screen? Or are you able to maintain a sense of stable awareness and actually be aware of everything around you and the screen at the same time? Then you start to realize we have the potential in enlightened, awakened humanity to be aware of the collective. But if, in this simple example, you are just constantly drawn in by the screen, if you're drawn in by your phone, by social media, by everything else that comes across your path, if you're constantly pulled out, so this is talking about your senses, if you're totally dependent and codependent with your sensory experience, then you're never actually going to be able to give your attention to the collective, because all you've really been doing is being pulled by people's opinions one way or another, much like the example that you were giving, Holly, of your friend who feels pulled this way and that in her business by, different people's opinions. So in that point, we're never really truly at peace. We're never really, to borrow something Monica said to me once, we're never really blissfully blowing in our own breeze. We're actually constantly buffeted. So, for example, in this current time when anger comes up, and this is a very difficult emotion to deal with. Anger is often triggered by an event, either personal or collective, or by a person, or by a collective shift even. And then we don't know which part is us and which part is the shift, and how do we relate to that? So the question really, when it comes to difficult emotions like anger, comes back to awareness. So, for example, where are we aware from? Who's asking the question? Who actually is getting angry? And where is the anger coming from? And there's a part of us that knows we don't want to be angry. We actually want to solve this with peace. We want to solve this with universal compassion and with self-compassion. But we have to go right back to basics and ask ourselves, who am I? Who is that person? You've all given examples of your own personal challenges. And so take your mother or father. So Holly, take your father, for example. The who am I question can be easily related to those people that we know and love best. So if you take your father, you can see your father from a whole variety of different perspectives. You can see him as a father. Other people might see him as a lover, as a brother, as a friend, as a cousin, and so on. And every single one of those perspectives does not touch the heart of your father. Every single one of those is just a view that we have from our own isolated perspective. It is not the whole being. You and probably your family don't see your father in the wholeness of himself. And he may not see that either. So it brings, who really is your father? Do we see people truly? We generally see just the parts of them. We generally see them in a divided way. Who is he really? He's the infinite potential of self. So, and so are we all. So until that's really the first answer that I'd give, and it's not really an answer, it's more a question, is that who are we as a collective and individually, and where are we aware from? As soon as we start to ask these questions, there's a part of ourselves that wakes up, and it starts to ask ourselves, where can we find the question? If you look out at that night sky, you're going to want to know what the other 99% is about. And to do that, you have to turn inwards. And to turn inwards really is the first step in humanity making a collective decision to enlighten, because you start to move inwards and say, the problem rests here with me. And the problem right at the root is that self, that construct of self that has set up all these divisions right from the very beginning. So that's my first part. You'd have to stop me because I could go on talking. How long have we got? Is it we've got at least 6 hours, right, to discuss this, you know, and it's such a remarkably important question, because it's time for humanity to wake up. It's time for humanity to stop fighting, to stop this conflict, to stop the militarization of the planet, to stop the abuse of all levels, right from children all the way to the planet itself. It's time for humanity to wake up. And the only way it's going to start to wake up is to turn inwards and say, I've projected, because you're only projecting from the small isolated self that you've built a construct of over such a long time. It's time to turn inwards and find out about the 99%, the invisible world, the world that actually does hold the answer to awakening, as ancient traditions have spoken about over time beyond time. And so that, you know, that's the value of the discussion that we have here, is that we can bring both self-compassion and universal compassion, but only when we stop. I mean, that's in a way has been one of the huge values of the pandemic, is it's forced people to stop. So they've got to the first part of that Buddhist perspective called shamatha, where they've had to pause and stop and take a personal retreat. But the key is, after that, do you say, oh, let's go back to normal? Or do you develop vipassana or insight and say, there is a great wisdom that's birthing. How can we really take hold of this? How can we develop this? So using the symbol of seeing the Himalayas from India, how can we develop and make this view of clarity, this clear light that we see now from India all the way to the Himalayas? How can we stabilize this view? And if humanity asked that fundamental question, then they would see that being enough actually has nothing to do with that construct that we've set up. Being enough is actually about connecting with the awareness that's beyond that, with the awareness that's beyond that self. So there's the first part of my question, and I just ask all of you to consider, who are you? Where is your awareness? And have you found out the secret? That it's in here.
That was beautiful, Stephen.
Yeah, truly. And I really appreciate that you took it to the wider one humanity perspective. I deeply appreciate that. Yeah.
I've only just started, Holly. There's, you know, I mean, it's really, I mean, that's the thing about a collective, you know, the beautiful ways that Monica led us into faith and trust. And then Shweta brought us on her journey of growth, and you reaffirmed the need for self-compassion. All goes right to the heart of this awareness, this collective awareness that we need to cultivate in order to awaken. Because without awakening, humanity is going to go back to the normal. And look what that was before the pandemic. It was just look at the environment. Really? We actually want to go back to polluting the earth exactly the same way, just as normal? I mean, you only have to ask that question really, really deeply in your heart of hearts. And no one can answer that with yes. I don't want to go back to that. So immediately you realize that the suffering of the earth is your suffering, and the suffering and the pain happens right here to begin with. So you have to work with that first and fundamentally. And I think that's the, you know, the value of so many of the ancient spiritual traditions, and really the value of the true heart of religion, is that we come back to simple values and principles that we can cultivate and eradicate forever on this planet the negative tendencies, all those karmic tendencies that are constantly battering humanity. The whole planet has to stand up and say, stop, I've had enough. I want to do something about this as a group, Free all those divisions, free to, you know, drop all the borders, all the passports, all this other nonsense that we've created to divide us, and get back to one humanity. And okay, what are we going to do now? Now that we are aware that the problem lies within us, now that we're aware that we can actually solve it as one humanity, now that we're aware that the answers have been there all the way along, we've got all the guidance we need, plus we've got the intention, which comes back to Monica's trust and faith. We've got faith in ourselves, enough faith to say, let's turn within and look for those answers. Let's enlighten ourselves. Let's all become the awakened human potential that we're truly on the path. We've been set up for that right from the beginning, but we just constantly turn our attention to other forms of distractions instead of treating what really is here and now. So anyway, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share these things with you, because I think they're so crucial and so deep and so beautiful. I mean, it's like the beauty of consciousness and the beauty of awareness is so all pervasive once we tune into it, like we're doing now. We're all doing it, all four of us, and everybody's listening, and everybody can feel that stillness and silence, spaciousness. And you ask, what more do I need? Exactly right. It's right here. It's right at that point.
I would love, you know, both Monica and Shweta, both of you came from, you know, had, you know, stories and childhoods that were the essence of, you know, being being blown around by all these external things that made you feel not enough, and in various ways. And, you know, Monica, I guess I'd start with you. You spoke about trust and faith. Is there a pivotal moment that you remember that was like the aha, that you went within and dropped into that faith? Do you remember what was the spark of change for you?
Well, one memory does come to mind. I don't know if it's exactly that, and it was just such a journey to learn, you know, after that. But I do have one memory that comes as you say that. And I would also like to say, Holly, that I just love this conversation, the questions, and everything Shweta said, and Stephen and you. I just think it's like everything's so compatible and just moves so nice together. And I love the collective idea as well. It's just all beautiful. And so thanks, Holly, for making this happen. You know, there was a time when I was 10. It sounds young, but we were supposed to go around the room and say what we want to be when we grow up. And, you know, we're 10. But I do remember, it sounds like, for what I've learned now, it was very well intended. But, you know, I had a lot to learn. So I didn't come into this life, I guess, like an enlightened being. Maybe I did, but, you know, it wasn't like the Buddha or Jesus but I said, I want to be a good person. I want to contribute. And my teacher just started crying. And she said, why did you say that? I said, I just really want to do better. I know it sounds like not enoughness, but I just said, I want to be a good person. And I didn't know exactly what that meant, but it was the only way I could put it into words at 10. I wanted to heal. I wanted to contribute. And I thought a lot about the spiritual realm then as well, but also I was also very had a lot of fear-based stuff with the human realm at that time. But that's what comes to mind when you ask me that is, and between now and then I've made tons of mistakes, or if you want to call them that, but that was what comes to mind, Holly. Like, I just remember that I said, help me learn how to navigate this life. I remember saying that to my, in prayer. But
no, that's so beautiful. I love that.
I remember
it for your 10-year-old heart.
So sweet. I was a very interesting moment. I just is the first thing that came out of my mouth.
No, and I think it's perfect because, you didn't say, this gets to the essence of the doing being conundrum. You didn't say, I want to do a million things. You said, I want to be a good person. And I want to become, which was the essence of what I was trying to say. I want to become kindness. I want to become love. That's where it starts. It's the coming home to ourselves, going within, finding that. And that when we do that, then everything, yes, we will act, and yes, we will do things. We will go contribute in various ways. We will do those things with, unbounded energy and love because we have become that within. And I just love that you found that at 10. What a beautiful answer. You were enlightened. Look at it for you to say that at 10. Come on. Oh, that's awesome. How about you, Shweta? Do you have or if there's something else you'd like to comment on or speak to, then I would welcome you. But I would love to know if there was a pivotal moment that was a change moment for you.
Yeah. And can you guys see me? It's gotten very dark and ominous here. Like the world is about to end. So do I need to turn on a light, or are we okay?
Just become it. Yeah, it's
just
fine.
Become the light. Okay. Woo. So I guess that a story that comes to mind is, it's a journey. I mean, I don't know that I can say that there was just one turning point, but I would say a watershed moment was, at my 20-year high school reunion. So I had been bullied when I was in 6th grade, and it was really just one day. I was walking home from school, and the troublemaker kid was walking ahead of me and my friend, and he was saying really mean racial things toward me, and he was throwing these big boulders of chunks of snowy, icy, boulders at me, when a plow goes through and it packs stuff, and he was throwing them at me. And my friend she was really athletic and sporty, and she was holding up her arms like Wonder Woman, and they would smash on her arms, and she was protecting me, and he went off in his direction when he got to where he needed to go, and she made sure that I got home safely. And that had been that had been the first time that I had experienced some sort of a physical bullying, even though he didn't physically touch me. I mean, it was physical. And that stayed with me for years and years and years. And then to the degree that, I would lie about my name when I was old enough to go to bars, because I didn't want somebody asking me, well, what kind of a name is Shweta? Where is that from? I didn't want to say, because I was really, really ashamed of it. And there were other kind of racial things that had happened, but this was one experience that really lived in me. And so I would lie. I would say, my name is Stephanie, right? And then they would say, well, where, I still don't look like a Stephanie. So then it's like, well, where are you from? And I would say, well, where do you think? And, whatever. And so it lived with me. And then fast forward to my high school reunion. So my friend who was protecting me like Wonder Woman was there, and we had lost touch. And then the bully guy was there. And so I needed some closure, I guess. And so I said to him, you were a jerk, and you were da-da-da-da-da, and you owe me an apology. I mean, I evidently still had an axe to grind from 6th grade, and he didn't even remember it. I just happened to be the person walking home near him that day that he could pick on. It wasn't personal. And then I ended up going to dinner with my Wonder Woman friend. And I said to her, thank you so much for protecting me that day. And, I just expressed my gratitude, and I was so appreciative. And I remembered that so much. And she said, oh my God, Shweta, I thought it was the coolest thing that you were from another country and a different culture, that inspired me to now teach English as a second language to students who have just immigrated to this country, because you were my first experience of that, and it meant so much. And so the story came full circle, all the way from 6th grade to my 20-year high school reunion. And all of the players got to have their say. And at that moment, I guess the aha moment for me was that it's all about the meaning that I put on that experience. Had I put a meaning on the experience and emphasized in my mind, like, I had somebody protecting me and I made it home safely and all was well and it never happened again, I would have had a totally different trajectory than the one that I had, because I chose to believe that I wasn't enough based on his bullying of me, you know? And so that to me was like, wow, we choose the meaning of absolutely everything. And so when we're believing that we're not enough, let's really dive in and question that meaning. And where is it coming from? And then, you know, start to heal that, because that's all it is. It's a story that we're telling ourselves based on the perception that we're not enough. So that really helped me to see that non-enoughness is simply a perception. It's global, it's insidious, and it's pervasive, but it's a perception. We don't come in that way. I mean, most of us, when we're in our mother's wombs, all of our needs are met. The temperature is comfortable, we're nourished. When, you know, we're never lonely because our mother's heartbeat is there. We have all of our needs met. And so we come in from that place, and somehow we unlearn that. And we learn somehow that we have to either earn something, or we, you know, mustn't be too full of ourselves or whatever. And, you know, the ways of the world we get batted about, you know, as you were talking about, Stephen, and all of those outside influences start to get in. But that was a really aha moment for me. And I still, you know, I'm so grateful for the fact that I was able to kind of have completion with both of those people from that experience.
Oh, I'm so pleased and honored that you told that story. I think it's a really impactful story, and, you know, gets to the heart of, it's all actually a perception. We create the perception, and thoughts are not facts. And we get to choose how we're going to view something, and it has a profound effect how we decide to write that story, if we're going to write a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome.
I love that, Shweta. That's so beautiful.
That was a lovely, beautiful, Shweta.
I've never shared that story. So
You haven't?
No, I've never shared it. So thank you for witnessing it for me.
Yeah, and I think it speaks perfectly to what we're talking about. So really, really wonderful. Stephen, we need to go within, and we need to find that. What's the best entry point for people? I mean, who are sort of watching this, and I don't know, I'm a little bit, have an instinct to bring it a little bit home to what's most important for people, you know, in their day-to-day life, when they walk out of this, you know, interview, when they look up, when they go about their lives, you know, where to start, and taking it from one humanity into sort of practical life. What comes to mind?
So, well, I'm going to take up on what Shweta said about the power of perception, and the fact that when we perceive something, that it's not necessarily the truth, it is just our perception. So if I think of two things that have been very, very helpful to me in life, one of them has been meditation, and the other one has been dream yoga. And it's interesting when you look at both of these, because dreams, for example, we spend about a third of our life sleeping and dreaming. So that's around about 25 years on average that humanity barely looks at, and that we don't treat in our education system. So we don't teach children how to lucid dream, or even how to use dreams for healing, or how to awaken in dreams. And then the other side of it is meditation. So one is look at your dream life, look at how to heal and how to liberate yourself in that time, that 25 years or so that you've got to spend, when you can actually stabilize this awareness and understand about healing, understand about your suffering, treat your dreams with great, deep respect. So that's one simple thing that you can do. The other one is meditation, and going back to this aspect of perspective. When you think about meditation, when we dissolve the body, or we dissolve pain, or we dissolve the aches of the day, or we dissolve the mind, or the breath vanishes, we're quite often prone to ask, oh, was that real? Was that a real experience? We might experience peace, for example, a really deep peace. And then we say, oh, but aren't I supposed to experience bliss? Where was the bliss? So there is an element within all of us that doubts. And yet, when normal aches and pains come up, when the mind takes over and tries to pull us back into the illusory world that we've created, we don't question that. We don't question the very construction we've placed around ourselves. We don't question the nature of the illusion itself. So if you look at meditation as a process, it's really curious how we give such weight to all the distractions and the challenges and the aches and pains, and we don't have a lot of deep faith in the fact that when, for example, deep peace comes, because it does if you're practicing meditation in a really deep way, it will come. It will come. It is actually part of our innate ground. So there is a ground which they call in Dzogchen practice, Ridpa. There's an innate awareness that you all have, that you all touch upon at different parts of your life, when perhaps you're sitting with a loved one looking out over a calm, still lake, and you just get that moment where it's absolutely pristine and perfect. So we all know those times. And we know the awareness that arises. It's only our awareness, our ability to be aware of that beautiful, pristine scene and feel that presence, feel that deep presence that is innate. It's in all of us. So a big part of the beginning of the path for us all is about having faith and an intention to want to turn inwards, to want to go deep, to want to actually touch that part of us that we call a spiritual search, and that we want to actually be free and learn how to deal with our difficult emotions. The moment that we start to take responsibility, and this is one of the powers of meditation, is that in meditation, you take responsibility for all those difficulties, those obstructions, those afflictions, and you actually learn insightful ways to deal with them. You start to learn skills not only of interoception, but of mindfulness, of concentration, of ways to go beyond concentration into absorption, where actually you do transcend that suffering, where actually you do touch peace. So some of these really, really basic skills, I don't see them on any curriculum. I don't see them taught throughout schools from the youngest age. I don't see them in our companies. So this is a really critical point, is that to begin the path, we need to cultivate enough deep interest and an intention to be free, and a desire to want to go deeply, and a desire to want to awaken. The moment you do that, you're going to start to set up the magnetism to attract into your life the teachers, the paths, the qualities, the teachings, the books, and so on, that will actually help you on the path. But as a humanity, we need to make that intention. So I would say, making the intention, having faith, practicing meditation, doing dream yoga would be of really great assistance to humanity, would be of really great assistance to you listening, if you haven't already embarked on that path, and if it's not already a constant practice in your life, you'll find that this intention will bring you such deep peace. And after all, it's that peace and the happiness and the love and compassion that we really want. So that's the big part of, I think, what everybody listening can do. Make that intention, and make that intention to practice it regularly. Because if you just give lip service to it and say, oh yeah, I'll do that tomorrow, then you never really go deep into finding out who you are.
Oh, thank you for that wise and beautiful answer. I'm aware that it's 6:10, and so I think I'll let that be the last wise word for the panel. I feel like I could talk for hours on this topic, so I'm sad that it's only a little more than an hour. But I just really thank you all, and I want to acknowledge each of you. And Shweta, where can folks find you if they would like to learn more about the work that you do or work with you?
I have a Facebook page that's Personal Point of Power. And then I also have a website that's personalpointofpower.com.
Great.
So those would probably be the two best places to reach out.
Wonderful. And I'll put that in the show notes too.
Thank you.
And Monica, how about you? Where can folks find you?
Yeah, they can find me at energia-transformyourlife.com.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you
here.
so much, Holly. Those questions were beautiful. You're such a great facilitator. And I loved Shweba's and Stephen's comments, and it's just so much fun. Thank you so much, you guys.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. And Stephen, where can folks find you if they want to be in touch?
Thank you, Holly. Yeah, once again, thank you, Holly, and thank you, Monica and Shweta. It really was a true joy to share like this, because it's really fun, so fundamentally deep and crucial for humanity, for one humanity. So Kevin Scheininger and I teach Raising Our Vibration. So it's a course that you can find us online at raisingourvibration.net, or you can go to the Raising Our Vibration community on Facebook. And we have a retreat, a free retreat online for anybody who would like to participate tomorrow my time. And you can find that either at any of those links, either at raisingourvibration.net or the Raising Our Vibration community. So either will take you there. So please come and join us. It's open to all. I think you'll find it deeply insightful. We're going to do some practices of Qigong and also Mahamudra. So you'll find it really insightful. And it'll bring you, Holly asked me the question, how could people do something practically? Well, there's something really simple and practical for free online that you can do. Come and join us. Come and sit with us, and in fact, come and energize with us, because I believe Kevin's going to do some really magical exercises to awaken that life force, that prana, that chi, that shakti, and let it flow. So thank you once again, Holly and Monica and Shweta, for your beautiful selves and your pristine awareness. Deeply, deeply grateful.
Thank you, Stephen. Deeply grateful to you for your wisdom and teachings. Really wonderful. And to Monica and Shweta, all of you, I'm really honored that you were here. Thank you for taking the time. And you can find me if you'd like to know more about the work I do at heartmindalchemy.com. And I also have a Patreon page if you want to throw $1 in the hat tip, patreon.com/heartmindalchemy. And anyway, supports the show and the work that I do. So I'm very grateful if anybody feels inspired to do that. And yeah, till next time, just really wonderful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. It was
Thank you, Holly.
Honor.
Really fun.
Love always. Blessings to everyone.
Yes, and thank you to everyone who joined and listened in. We acknowledge the listeners out there. Thank you all so much for joining in.